Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Vibrant Health Show. I'm Dr. Shannyn Pearce, and we are kicking off February, which is Heart Health Month, right? It's Valentine's Day, it's Heart Month, but we're going to talk all about heart health specifically for women because it is different than what they teach for men. And unfortunately, a lot of the advice, like most healthcare you'll find, is really male focused. And there's not a whole lot of research on the nuances of females and how our hormones and our stress levels and all these other things really play into heart disease, heart health, blood pressure, cholesterol. We're going to talk all about that all month long. Lots of great topics coming up. Today, we're going to dive into hormones in particular. So a couple things I want to touch on first when it comes to heart health for women. Heart disease is the number one killer for women. When I ask that question, like, what do you think number one is? Most people will say cancer, and that's a pretty close number two. But heart disease is number one for women and for men. But our signs and symptoms of heart disease, and even our root causes of heart disease, can be quite a bit different than men, right? Even like looking at the symptoms of a heart attack, where a man really has the intense chest pain and the shooting pain down the left arm. For women, it can feel more like that pressure, like that elephant feeling that we've all kind of been told, well, it's just anxiety or it's just stress, right? It's always played off. It can be more like shortness of breath. There's a lot of different nuances that we're not taught as women to look at differently than men, right? Also for men, a lot of it is caused by plaquing in the arteries, right? Clogged arteries, blocked arteries. That is the main cause in men. Where women, it's more about the health of our blood vessels, the flexibility of the blood vessels, even more than just the plaquing and the blocking of the arteries. So teaching you how to do your best, right, to protect and prevent against those things. We can't talk about that conversation without talking first about how hormones play into that, right? So that's what we're going to cover today. And I mean, the numbers are shocking, right? It's like 60 million women in the US have some sort of heart disease or heart complications. That's almost half of the women. Like that's a huge number. We're not just talking about a small sampling of the population. So this is a conversation that needs to be had with everybody, right? You need to hear and learn these things and know what you can do to prevent, because there's so many things we don't have control over, right? I always want to give you the things that you do have control over. And a good healthy hormone balance is one of those things that every woman can work on and make sure that you're doing your due diligence. So let's talk about some hormones. We're going to go over a couple of different things today. As far as risk factors go for women with heart disease, if you're a woman who's had children and you have any complications during your pregnancy, things like preeclampsia, gestational diabetes, blood pressure in pregnancies, those are pretty good warning signs that you're at a higher risk for heart disease later on in life. So even if you're not, we're going to talk a lot about this like perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause phase today, but in no way is this conversation not for younger women as well. The sooner you can balance and get on top of fixing some of these things, the better it's going to be. So this is relevant for all ages. Just most of the research is coming more at that perimenopausal, menopausal range when we're really seeing a big influx in heart disease risk. But earlier on, if you have hormone imbalance, even things like PCOS and endometriosis have been linked to a greater risk of having heart disease as you get older, because of the hormone, right, piece of that puzzle. So if you're a younger woman and you have some hormone-related illnesses, PCOS, endometriosis, abnormal, cycles, all of those are some type of hormone imbalance. If you had any complications during your pregnancies, and then if you are of perimenopause or menopausal age, these are all relevant topics for you. So no one is excluded from this, but we're going to talk a lot about how to support hormones as they start to change in later years, over 40. With hormones, it is very much a Goldilocks situation, right? And I'm going to try and hit on as much of this as I can because I know it can be complicated. There are just as many risk factors with low hormone as there are with high hormone, right? So we have to be really intentional about knowing where our levels are so we can choose the best choices, right? Because what I need for my body might not be what you need for your body. And unfortunately, when it comes to research and articles, my biggest kind of annoyance with that is it's usually just a blanket statement, right? Like all women need estrogen to help support heart disease after menopause. Okay, maybe that's like a little bit true, but you don't know. Like you might still have estrogen dominance. You might have inflammatory estrogens. You don't know exactly what your body needs. So just that one statement, I do not find to be true. However, there's a lot of truth in the fact that if your hormones are declining during perimenopause and postmenopause, you are absolutely putting yourself at more risk for heart disease. But we have to know how to balance the two, right? Because an estrogen dominance, too much estrogen, does put us at risk of cancers and breast cancers. It does put us at more risk of stroke, right? Too little estrogen can put us at risk, and too much estrogen can put us at risk. We've got to find that happy middle Goldilocks place for our hormones. And that's one of the things that my team and I do so well, is really navigating an individual plan, because nobody's hormone patterns look the same. I've read thousands of hormone labs and I've never seen two that look the same. Ever, literally, never two identical patterns ever over thousands of cases. So you are unique and your choices need to be unique as well. But the number one hormone to take into consideration when we're talking about heart health is estrogen. And if you look back on some of my videos, I talk a lot about estrogen dominance and things that estrogen can cause if you have too much of it. And there are a lot of things, right? Estrogen's inflammatory if there's too much or too much of the wrong kinds. It can be a root cause for things like endometriosis. It can have some play in PCOS. It can cause weight gain. It can cause pain. There's a lot of things that too much estrogen can cause. But we need estrogen, right? It's very protective, not only to the heart, right? It actually protects the arteries. It keeps them nice and flexible. It protects our brain health. Women who continue to have nice levels of estrogen through perimenopause and menopause have significantly less risk of Alzheimer's and dementia. Estrogen is the most important thing when we're talking about bone health, osteoporosis, and osteopenia. Everyone wants to take their calcium and magnesium supplement, which probably isn't doing you any good. Balance your estrogens, keep your inflammation low. Those are the ways we keep good, nice, healthy bones as we age. So there are so many beautiful benefits to estrogen that we don't always give it enough credit for, because we're looking out for all the things that happen when we have too much of it. So I want to show you two very different examples of women in their perimenopause kind of transition phase with their hormones to just highlight what I'm talking about. So remembering, we need estrogen, right? We also need estrogen at age appropriate ranges, right? So what a 20-year-old woman needs for estrogen is not at all what a 45-year-old woman needs, is not at all what a 65-year-old woman needs. However, every one of those phases needs proper hormone support. I don't care how far past menopause you are. Hormones are not just for fertility. They're not just for cycle regulation. They're literally chemical messengers that talk all over the body and control all of these different functions, that at any phase of life, if your levels are too low for your age appropriate ranges, you are going to have consequences. And as you get older, those consequences unfortunately become a little bit more severe, not a little bit more severe, because now we're talking dementia, Alzheimer's, heart disease, stroke. Those are very major complications of not having enough hormone. So just because you're postmenopausal doesn't mean you don't need hormone support. You just need, again, the right support for your age and what your levels look like. But again, not too much, not too little, which is why you'll hear me talk all the time, especially when it comes to hormones, about proper hormone testing first, because I know there's been great stuff out there. I mean, if you Google like hormone replacement therapy, you are going to find two very different camps of people, right? You're going to have the pro hormone replacement therapy that feels like it's the cure-all, it's great for everybody, it's safe for everybody, everyone should be on it. They're pumping you full of testosterone and estrogen and they feel really great about that. And then you're going to have the camp over here that's like, no, never, it's dangerous. All this research says that hormone replacement can cause cancer and can cause stroke and can cause all these bad things. Don't do it ever. I don't think either's right? There's a nice middle ground, but there's also several very beautiful natural options that don't have to be synthetic hormone replacement. Personally, for myself, when I'm working with my females, I never do synthetic hormone replacement, but there are wonderful plant-based bioidentical versions. There are great botanical versions. Some women just need some good herbal support to make sure their body's balancing their hormones. Just because I'm telling you you need hormone balance does not mean I'm saying you need hormone replacement therapy. Now, there are also, and I'm going to show you on some of these labs, there are some women that is safer for, right? If you have really clean hormone pathways, if you don't tend to make a lot of inflammatory estrogen, if your pathways are pretty calm, you are somebody who could likely do hormone replacement therapy without very much risk. However, if you're the other side, if you have these hormone pathways that are weak, if you tend to store inflammatory estrogens that we know have been linked to cancer, then hormone replacement might not be a safe option for you. But if you don't test, you really don't know. And the scariest part, in my opinion, about hormone replacement is normally they're only monitoring you through blood, right? They're doing one blood draw. They're saying that your estrogen's low, your testosterone's low. They're putting you on replacement. And a lot of times, which freaks me out even more, they don't retest your levels to see how high they're going. They might put you on it and just leave you there, which is insanity. Or they're just retesting through blood, which what I'm about to show you, the safety pathways, the should I do hormone replacement or not pathways, you don't get to see those on blood. Those have to be through urine to see how you're metabolizing. It's the word I'm going to use a lot today. How do you metabolize your hormones? That is the answer you have to have before you know if it's safe for you to do any version of hormone therapy, right? Natural, synthetic, herbal, whatever. You need to know if it's safe for you first, and then based on your levels, choose what potency you need, right? Can you go gentle with some herbals and botanicals? Are your levels really deficient and you probably need some plant-based bioidenticals? Do you have really clean pathways and crazy low numbers and you might need some hormone replacement therapy because yours are so deficient? You have options, right? And there's an option to serve everybody, but it always starts with making sure you know your levels, but more importantly, your pathways and how your body is metabolizing estrogen. So I know that was a lot of information. So let me go into a couple of examples that I think will clear that up for you. I see lots of comments. I'll try and get back to those if I can. I know I talk a lot, so I tend to run out of time and I come back and answer them later. And if you're watching the replay or on YouTube, I'll come back and answer them later. I'm going to share my screen with you. If this is small and you can't see it, don't worry. I'm going to talk you through all of it. But I want to show you my personal absolute favorite labs for hormones. Let me make sure I can pull this up for you. Sorry about that, guys. I lost my tab that I had ready to pull up. Sorry, I'm going to pull it up as we go. So what I'm going to show you guys as I pull this up is, it's called the Dutch test. If you have watched me for any length of time, if you're working with me, certainly you've had a Dutch test. But I'm going to show you specifically those estrogen pathways on this Dutch test. So this is a hormone and adrenal mapping test. It is done through urine. It has to be done through urine. At some point, if you are testing your hormones, you have to do it through urine. You may have had saliva testing, you may have blood testing. They all have different benefits, but the pathways I'm about to show you can only be seen through the metabolites in urine. And this is where you really get that safety piece of the puzzle. So this first one I'm going to show you, let me just make sure y'all can see this. Give me a thumbs up if you can see it. So this is a perimenopausal woman who's in her mid 40s, and she is thinking she's transitioning through menopause. She had all of these symptoms. She was having weight gain. She was having hot flashes. She was having all these issues. And symptomatically, this would have been the person you're thinking, oh, her estrogens are starting to decline, right? Which is normal in perimenopause. Maybe her estrogens are low, and that's why she's having all of these issues. So if we take that standard stance of a woman in perimenopause needs estrogen replacement so that we can protect her heart, so that we can protect her bones, we can protect her brain, and every woman transitioning through menopause should have estrogen support. But then you stumble on a woman like this, who that's actually the exact opposite of what needs to happen. So when I say estrogen is important, I really mean it, but it's important to be at that nice mid-range for, let me say it again, the appropriate phases of life. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, so if you're trying to follow along with me, you can. Here's what I want you to notice. When we do this specific testing, there's 3 different ranges you can be in. There is this purple bar at the bottom. If you can't see it, it's just like a tiny little purple bar. That's menopausal range. So I'll have women who message me all the time. They're like, well, I'm in menopause. Do I even need to test my hormones? Yeah, we need to make sure you're in appropriate menopausal ranges, right? I have women whose hormones are so tanked, they're not even in menopausal range. And then I'll have women like this who you should be in menopausal range, but you have 5 times the estrogen you should have. That's concerning, right? We need to know what your appropriate ranges are. So there's a range for menopause. Between the purple bar and that first star, we have a range for perimenopause, right? So I kind of say 45 to 55. You should mostly be in about that range. And then we have the 2 yellow stars, which is a regularly cycling female who's having a consistent cycle ongoing, typically 45 and under. So no matter where you fall in the age spectrum, we're going to be able to see what's safe and right for your body. So this woman, about 45 years of age, is 10 times where she should be on estrogen, which means we're not concerned about her transitioning through menopause and needing to give her more estrogen. We, right now, our biggest priority is we need to clean up her estrogens so that when she transitions through menopause, she has healthy natural levels. Because if they get stored, right, as your body starts to decrease making hormones, if this extra estrogen gets stored in the uterus, the fat cells, different areas of your body, that's when we run the risk of cancer, inflammatory disease, the bad things that come from estrogen. So this lady in particular, same age as the next lady I'm about to show you, she is a non-starter for hormone therapy. We are not doing any type of hormone support. We're going to do a lot of hormone cleanup because that's what's safer for her. So please don't just based on, oh, I'm about the age I'm going through menopause, or it says I should be on hormone replacement, or even just based on your symptoms. If a doctor tries to prescribe you hormone replacement based on symptoms, it's an absolute no, timeout. I need to see what my levels and my pathways look like before I make those choices, because symptomatically, she would have been a dead ringer for a woman in perimenopause who needed hormone support, yet her actual pathways were the exact opposite of what some of those symptoms were telling her. So testing is crucial. With it being Hormone and Heart Health Month, this is the test that I have on sale this month. So we're doing $50 off the Dutch test. Plus, just like I did last month, we're going to include your test review appointment with one of my doctors to review all of your findings with you, because especially with this test, it's very complicated. It's very detailed. So it's nice to have somebody walk you through what all of this means, but making sure that we're checking those pathways. The other thing I want to bring to your attention is these pathways underneath. So I just told you that these estrogens up top, these are the levels we're looking for. What you cannot see on blood, you could have seen your estradiol on blood tests, like these top 2, you could have seen just through blood. What you would not have seen are these ones that come next. These are your metabolism pathways, how you use your estrogen. In particular, there is one pathway, this one right down here, the second one down, if you can see that red arrow. It's called your 4-OH estrogen. This is the most specific one that I look for when it comes to safety of hormone replacement, because that 4-OH estrogen is the most inflammatory version of estrogen, the one that's been linked through research time and time again to be the culprit of a lot of the things that estrogen's gotten a bad name for. It can be the root cause of things like cancer, endometriosis, abnormal cell growth. This is the part of the estrogen that can create those issues. And it's known to bind to the DNA and cause DNA damage. So DNA damage is just a fancy word for abnormal cell growth, which can show up in all kinds of different ways. So when I'm looking at a Dutch test, no matter what your levels are, if your 4-OH estrogen is elevated, if you tend to make and store too much dangerous estrogen, we're being very careful with our choices for hormone support. So on the next one I'm going to show you the same pathways, but a little bit of a different situation. So for this woman in particular, even though she's in perimenopause, we're working on cleaning up her estrogens. We want to make sure her estrogen metabolism pathways are working better. We want to make sure we prepare her body to be safe to, at some point, right? Remember, she's only 45, maybe by 65, she's going to need some hormone support. Our current job is to make sure it will be safe at some point for her to do that by cleaning up these pathways first. And these dangerous estrogen pathways are the ones you will not see on blood. You would not have known that was there. You won't see it on a saliva test. You have to do it through urine, which is why I harp all the time on the Dutch test. Fully believe every woman in every phase of life needs to do the Dutch test. I redo mine every 2 years because I want to keep my eyes on things that I can control. If I know my body is storing abnormal estrogen and I correct it before it becomes cancer, that's prevention, right? Not waiting till you have something and then trying to go back and fix it. So for me, this is a valuable tool I do ongoing. At bare minimums, every woman should be doing it at transitional phases of life. So if I had my, control of healthcare system, as soon as a woman got her period for the first time at whatever it should be, 13 or 14, it's starting a whole lot earlier now, but after 2 regular cycles, on the 3rd cycle, I'd be doing a Dutch test. Before we tried to get pregnant, all pre-fertility, we should be doing a Dutch test. After every pregnancy, which was my big story, right? My big health crash happened after pregnancy because at that time I didn't know how to properly support my hormones. We should be doing postpartum Dutch tests as soon as we're done nursing. We should be doing it in perimenopause. We should be doing it postmenopausally. We should know our patterns. We should know our pathways, and we should be diligently keeping on top of these things to actually prevent disease instead of just managing it when it happens. And for me, the Dutch test is one of those really cool tools that we can actually get ongoing data about your body and how to properly support it. So important, so important. If you've not done one, please take advantage of grabbing that Dutch test. If you've done one, but it's been a while, if it's been over 2 years, you're due for another one for sure. Go ahead and grab that one too. Now, let me show you the next one. This one is a completely different situation. This woman is actually the same age. Pull this up for you, but a completely different pattern. Now, if you remember, I said you can see those first couple of estrogens. I'm going to screen share this one with you too. You can see those first couple of estrogens in blood. So this would have been the exact situation where this woman goes in, perimenopause, right? Starting to have some hot flashes, starting to have some low energy, feeling like she's gaining a little bit of weight, just not really feeling like herself, blaming it on the fact that she's, a few years from menopause, she's in her mid to late 40s. And if they would have blood tested, they would have said, oh yeah, your estradiol is pretty low. Compared to the other lady, these estrogens are very low. And they would have said your estrone, which is another estrogen, is low. They'd be like, yeah, you're a perfect candidate for some estrogen replacement. Let's put you on some estrogen. This will help you feel better. You should probably stay on it all the way through menopause because it helps protect your heart, helps protect your bones, which again are factual statements if it's safe for you. What they would have missed is underneath that, we start seeing she has low estrogen in phase 1, low estrogen in phase 2, but all of a sudden these estrogens jump all the way up. And then her first level of estrogen detox jumps all the way up. So we have something abnormal going on in these pathways that are causing whatever she is making for her estrogens to get stored in these abnormal pathways. So unlike the other lady who we're not doing really any hormone support right now, she does not need more hormone in any capacity. This woman truly does have low estrogen. She's going to need those support because if we leave her estradiol too low and it continues to go down, we're putting her at risk of heart disease. But we have a little bit of preliminary work that needs to start first. We have to clean up these pathways. We have to make sure we retrain her body to metabolize hormones so that when we do go, and a lot of times that doesn't take very long, right? 30, 60 days maybe of prep work. But then if we go back and choose a botanical option or plant-based bioidentical to help her with her low estrogen, we're not putting her at any additional risk. So sometimes the answer is not no, never. It's, hey, let's do a little bit of work first, and then we can go in and support all these beautiful pathways and get you all of the benefit. But again, this person, based on symptoms and blood work, would have been put on hormone replacement, not knowing that those hormones are getting stored in these other pathways. And this might have been the woman that 5 or 10 years from now all of a sudden starts to get these negative effects from hormone replacement because we didn't first do our due diligence in looking at pathways. I mean, that is the most important thing you can do. I am an avid believer that hormone balancing, right? Not always hormone replacement therapy, but balancing your hormones is incredibly important, but it has to be done safely. And I think that's the piece we're really missing in our current hormone management system is we're throwing people on things with very little testing. We're going just based on symptoms. If you come back and tell me you feel great, awesome, we're staying on the same dose. If you tell me you're coming back and you don't feel good, we're probably just upping your dose, but we're not really checking, we're not investigating, we're not making sure we're doing the right things. And that long term, if you are going through menopause, you're going to have hormone balance for years and years and years. You need to know that you're on the safe and appropriate doses for your body, for your age, and for what your body is able to metabolize, what those pathways look like. So estrogen is hugely important, but we have to find that nice middle Goldilocks where you are in the right age frame. Now, the same thing goes, I have lots of women who come to me already on some type of hormone replacement. And one of the first things we do with the Dutch test is determine if they're on the right one, right? Are you on the right dose? Are you on the right type? Is your body absorbing it appropriately, or is it storing it in these pathways? So maybe you're already doing some hormone work and you've not seen if your body is actually responding to it the way that you want to. That's another beautiful use of the Dutch test. You actually stay on whatever you're doing for hormones while you take the test. And we get to see, is it right for you? Is it not right for you? Where do we go from here, right? Do we need to slowly transition to something more natural because your body's not doing the right thing with this? Or are you spot on? Does this look great for now? And maybe you should test again in a couple of years and just see that it's still the right doses for you. You can use it for that purpose too, right? It doesn't always mean you have to change everything up, but you do need to know what's going on with those estrogens. Because again, too much, we're in a whole world of trouble. And we're talking cancer, we're talking inflammation, we're talking abnormal cell growth. Too little, now we have dementia, osteoporosis, risks of heart disease and stroke. So either side is not great. That nice middle ground is ideal. And again, the ranges and levels are different for every single age. Personally, part of my story was at 28 years old, right after my first pregnancy, all of my hormones tanked, including my estrogen. At 28 years old, my estrogen was in perimenopausal range, way lower than I had any business being at 28 years old. And had I have not known that, I'm at 28 years old, if I have barely any estrogen, I'm putting myself at massive risk for heart disease and stroke over time. And I would never have known if I didn't do a Dutch test, because I actually did a blood test. Here's a lot that we'll talk about today. I know I'm giving you a lot of information, but part of what's not great about doing blood tests for hormones is the ranges and the times of your cycles. And in fact, when I would do a blood test for hormones, they always looked kind of low normal. But because the ranges are so dramatic, right? There's so much wiggle room. And if the person reading a blood lab doesn't ask you to be at a specific time of your cycle, doesn't know if you've had any of these other, ablations, if you're on birth control, if you've had a hysterectomy, when your last cycle was, where you're at in your ovulation cycle, and none of these things are accounted for, you have this number truly on a blood lab range. The range goes from 0.1 to like 260. And if they don't know where you're at in your cycle or your history of what you're doing for hormone support, as long as you are somewhere between 0.1 and 260, they're going to call you in normal range. Your numbers won't be flagged. They will look normal at first glance on your labs when there's nothing normal about an almost 300-point swing in labs. That's the problem. People are going for years, if not decades, not knowing that they have these imbalances and these problems, because on a very standard, very basic lab, everything is in normal range, but there's so many pieces of that puzzle. So this is one of the topics I feel so passionate about, because hormones are mismanaged, and especially as women, men too, right? We do lots of hormone tests on men as well, but for women, when it comes to heart disease, those chemical messengers, our hormones, the fluctuation in our hormones, there's such a key piece of making sure we're keeping our heart and our cardiovascular system strong, that's the number one killer. That's the thing that's killing the most women across the board. And we have these tools and resources to reduce that risk, yet we're rarely being told. We're not being shared these options. And I think that's heartbreaking, because I bet you we could see a dramatic shift in those numbers if we just properly supported our estrogens throughout our entire life. But it's never too late, right? You might be sitting here at 65 being like, crap, no one's ever checked my estrogen. It's okay, right? There's still time. Get on, whenever you're starting is the time to start. But moving forward, if we're really trying to change healthcare, it's teaching women from a young age how important it is to balance our endocrine and our hormone system, because it does directly impact the major systems like our nervous system for brain health, our cardiovascular system, which is major. Our hormones impact our immune system. They impact so many different things. Yeah, we're always just kind of told like, yeah, unless you want birth control or hormone replacement, there's nothing you can do. That is absolutely untrue. So here's your daily reminder that hormones matter. It's a real thing. It's impacting you. And if you've not had them properly tested, again, we have that Dutch test on sale this month. I'll drop the links below. Next, we're going to go, this whole month, we're talking about heart health, but we're going to talk about heart healthy foods. We're going to go deep dive into cholesterol, where there's so many myths and things going on about cholesterol. We're going to talk about stress and the impact that has on your heart, and how your adrenals really connect with that stress management system, and what you can do to minimize any of those complications as well. So all month long, if you know a woman who needs to hear this, make sure you tag her here, or you get her in this group, or you send her the replays, because this is serious information. This is the number one killer of women in general. And we need to make sure that we're spreading and sharing this information. So if you have daughters, friends, mothers, whoever needs to hear this, make sure that they do. And I'll be back next week with lots more information. I'll drop those links below and I'll come back and answer all of your questions. I know there's several down there. So I'll come back and check on those and we'll see you next week.